I'm Keith Olbermann, and this is The Resistance. We have elected a shitty businessman. Amid everything else from the psychosis to the orange bull in the nuclear china shop, we have elected a guy who doesn't know the first thing about the American economy. Any business that leaves our country for another country, fires its employees, builds a new factory or plant in the other country, and then thinks it will sell its product back into the U.S. without retribution or consequence is wrong. There will be a tax on our soon-to-be strong border of 35% for these companies wanting to sell their product, cars, AC units, etc., back across the border. First of all, that's exactly what he did not do with the carrier company in Indiana, the thing he is still boasting about, as if instead of a tax break for some rich guys, what he had really done was to give everybody eternal life. Carrier got $7 million in taxpayer money from the state of Indiana to not move 800 jobs to Mexico, and it is still moving 600 jobs to Mexico. And it's not facing a 35% tax for selling its Mexican-made products in the United States. Donald Trump, shitty businessman. But of course, it's far worse than that. Consider for a moment what would really happen if he really was able to unilaterally and immediately impose that 35% tax. Don't think about the thousands of jobs at the hundreds of carrier-style companies around the country right now. Think about the jobs as yet uncreated. Trump, shitty businessman, is telling companies, domestic or international, that if they open new plants in the U.S. or hire more Americans in their operations already in the U.S., there's no going back. Those jobs had better be forever. If another company in Carrier's position, let's call them Schmarier, hires one new employee in this country and then something happens to the economy of the country or just of the Schmarier company and they have to fire that one guy and move his job to Canada or somewhere, suddenly, according to the Trump shitty businessman plan, there could be a 35% tax on all Schmarier products sold in this country. Explain to me the motive now for Schmarier or anybody else ever to expand their U.S. business again. Explain to me the motive for Schmarier or anybody else ever to hire another American worker again. Add to that, this idiot Trump states, as if there were no laws, as if there was no Congress, as if there were no courts, that, quote, there will be a tax, like he could just make one up as and when he wants it. What kind of business wants to invest in a country where the economy is predicated not on regulations or even just patterns, but on the whim of one shitty businessman? And as if to underscore this, the vice president-elect, the one whose home state just bribed Carrier with $7 million of our taxpayer money so Trump can boast about what a super genius he is, Pence went even further. When it comes to punishing companies that move jobs out of this country, Mike Pence says, quote, the president-elect will make those decisions on a day-to-day basis. Again, it ain't his call. There's no reason for Trump to know that. He's just a shitty businessman. But Pence has supposedly been the governor of a state for nearly 4 years, a state with laws and a legislature and courts. And he has just told all those businesses that are considering hiring Americans, great, but don't ever try to fire them, because if he's in a bad mood, Generalissimo shitty businessman will slap you with a 35% tax because a guy who got 2 million fewer votes than the other candidate is convinced he's Moses coming down the mountain with the goddamn commandments in his hands. President-elect shitty businessman has just thrown the brakes on a huge part of the American economy. And what's worse, he may have also thrown the economy into reverse. There was a second part of that tweet storm you may have missed. These companies are able to move between all 50 states with no tax or tariff being charged. This is an even dumber deal. Not only do our imaginary executives at Schmarier have no motive to add jobs in this country, but now, with the economy stalled by the new 35% revenge tax from Donald J. Trump shitty businessman, they can say to the governments of whatever states their plants are now in, if you don't give us more tax breaks or build us new facilities, we're moving to Wyoming. First, you cut the legs off our economy by punishing any company that expands its workforce on the logical premise that, yes, in bad times, it can downsize its workforce. But then, with jobs suddenly scarce, you give all employers everywhere an official sanction to pit one state against another. Hell, to pit one county against another, like this was a nation of sports teams looking for a new taxpayer-funded stadium. The states and communities willing to bribe companies the most and with lower standards of living so employees have to get paid the least will be able to take this country's economy to the fucking cleaners because we have just elected a shitty businessman. Resist. Peace.